Today from the global lane, Israel's contradictory ceasefire. Hostages return home as Hamas regroups.
This deal more or less guarantees that Hamas will take back control of most of Gaza because Israel is being forced to withdraw. It's as simple as that. It's a zero-sum game.
President Trump gives TikTok a 75-day extension. Young American conservatives warn of a danger beyond China data collection.
TikTok quickly sends out information that completely distorts reality. It pits us against one another. It really polarizes the country with a lot of just complete nonsense information.
3 years after Dobbs, pro-lifers gather again in D.C., marching for life and warning of the risks of the abortion pill. In post-war Gaza, it's time for Palestinians to choose a more prosperous future.
It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
And it's all right here on the global lane. Several hours after being sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump greeted the family members of hostages held in Gaza. Hamas released 3 hostages before Trump's inauguration. 4 more are set to be released on Saturday. However, will the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas hold? President Trump remains skeptical. Joining us to share his thoughts is Jewish News Service Editor-in-Chief Jonathan Tobin. Jonathan, it's good to talk with you again. So does Trump have good reason to be skeptical? What do you expect is likely to happen?
Oh, he has very good reason to be skeptical. This ceasefire hostage deal is almost certain to, at some point, collapse. The way to think about it, it's complicated. Every decent person is overjoyed, or should have been overjoyed, at the sight of those 3 young women who were released amid a howling mob, threatening them when this happened this past Sunday. The problem is that it is basically a ransom payment, and it's contradictory. There's so much that is hopeful about a new Trump administration, his appointees, people like Mike Huckabee. You can go through the whole list of people involved. Even his executive orders on the first day defunding UNRWA, the UN refugee group that is basically aimed at perpetuating the war and is allied with and infiltrated by Hamas terrorists. These are all great things. But Donald Trump, on the one hand, his administration, says they're against Hamas. They want to help Israel get rid of Hamas. But this ceasefire deal that he helped broker, and that basically happened because he said it had to happen, because he said he would unleash all hell and on the Middle East, and his envoy not only negotiated with Qatar and other Hamas enablers, but really bullied Netanyahu. Prime Minister Netanyahu pressured him tremendously to make it happen so that President Trump could have the optics he wanted on day one of his administration. But it is contradictory because this deal more or less guarantees that Hamas will take back control of most of Gaza because Israel is being forced to withdraw. It's as simple as that. It's a zero-sum game. So, of course, the ceasefire will break down because Hamas is just going to continue to demand, its right to maintain power in Gaza and to resume the war, the genocidal war that it launched on October 7th, 2023.
Well, Monday in the Oval Office, the president was asked about the ceasefire. He projected a hands-off attitude, saying it's not America's war. So just how involved do you expect his administration and Secretary of State Marco Rubio to be in ending the war and ensuring Israel is supported by the United States? What difference do you expect over the Biden administration?
Well, I am hopeful, and I think there's every reason to be hopeful, that Trump and Secretary of State Rubio will not be looking to second guess, to hamstring, and to stop Israel from doing what it needs to do to defend itself. That's what Biden did. I mean, he always talked out of both sides of his mouth about the war on Hamas, as did the rest of his foreign policy team. I don't think we're going to get that from Trump. Clearly the opposite. But what that means is that, he also wants there to be no foreign wars. He wants this war to end. But the only way it ends is with an Israeli victory, with Israel finishing the job of taking out Hamas. And the terms of this, hostage release deal more or less ensures that that can't happen. because the ceasefire allows Hamas to rearm, reorganize, and take back control of those areas that it was kicked out of, in exchange, hopefully, for all of the hostages. But even in the first deal, we didn't even get the Americans out. So there's good reason for optimism about Trump's attitude and his willingness to let Israel do what it needs to do. But with this deal, Israel's been made weaker, and it will resume the war at some point, almost certainly, because Hamas is bound to violate and not make good on the second and third phases of the deal. And the price for this deal will be paid not only in the release of hundreds of murderers and convicted terrorists, which is shocking and terrible, but also in the lives of Israeli soldiers and Palestinians who will be killed when the war inevitably resumes, because that's the only way that Hamas will be destroyed. Allowing it to stand means Hamas survives and wins, and that dooms the Middle East to repeat the cycle in which Hamas vows to create more October 7th atrocities, and Israel must defend itself.
And what about its sponsor, Iran? I mean, Russian President Putin recently entered an agreement to provide Iran with advanced weaponry, new air defense systems. So is now the time for Israel to make a move against the Islamic Republic's nuclear assets before those new systems are delivered?
Well, Iran is the head of the snake. Iran, which was strengthened by Joe Biden's appeasement and his sending of money and relaxation of sanctions, they created this seven-front war on Israel that began on October 7th, 2023. Israel needs to address that. The United States needs to address that. And again, will be a test for President Trump and his foreign policy team. They don't want to get into a war with Iran. Americans rightly don't want more foreign misadventures. But Israel may have to do something about that. And the hope is, and I think it's a reasonable hope, is that the United States will support Israel in that, give it the green light, back it up, give it the weapons it needs if it doesn't have them now. Let's hope that's the way we're heading, and not towards an effort to sort of allow this ceasefire to stand, forever, so as to enable Hamas to continue to survive and win. And that's a win for Iran. That shouldn't happen.
Okay, we'll see what happens with the new administration. Jonathan Tobin, JNS Editor-in-Chief. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your insights. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
After shutting down temporarily in the United States, TikTok is back in business. President Trump says he'll act to keep the popular app operating in America.
But let the United States of America own 50% of TikTok. I'm approving on behalf of the United States.
The president is giving ByteDance, the corporate owner of TikTok, a time extension to work out a deal with the U.S. government or sell the business to an American corporation. Well, joining us with more is Young Voices contributor and political analyst Sam Rouse. Sam, it's good to have you with us. So Donald Trump opposed TikTok operating in the U.S. initially because of the security risks it poses mining private data. And now he's proposing joint U.S. ByteDance ownership. So that's what communist China does. So what do you think of that proposal?
I think it's rather unrealistic. Would be something the United States has never done before. And I mean, that's not to say that Trump hasn't done things that the United States has never done before. But I think what's much more likely is the president will pursue an extension of the law on the basis that some friends in the business community clearly are seeking some sort of acquisition of the platform. I know there's a number of rumors swirling around Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, of course, are already in the social media space, and a number of others. I mean, this is a huge platform, has a lot of influence on society, and it's something a lot of people are very interested in.
But what about the U.S. government? I mean, that would be unprecedented, wouldn't it, for the U.S. government to actually be involved in social media that way?
Yeah, it really would. And I think it would raise so many concerns across the board from people of both parties and of all sorts of ideologies, just because of the role in which we saw the government play in influencing social media during the COVID lockdown. And what has now came out and a number of interviews about what the Biden administration did during those times, I think it would give a lot of cause for concern from people from, as far right as maybe a Rand Paul to as far left as an AOC of why is the United States government getting involved in this private sector space?
And people speculate that Trump's son, Barron, convinced his dad that he could use TikTok to his benefit in the presidential campaign. He probably won a lot of votes for posting videos and ads there. So what influence do you think Barron and Gen Z voters had in changing the president's mind about TikTok?
Well, I certainly think that he saw a big uptick in support among my generation, and that has weighed in on this decision. I think we saw quickly after, as the shutdown was looming, as it came in, a number of his younger influencer base, which seem to be some of his main spokespeople now, speaking out against it and criticizing this much older Congress for passing this bill, completely ignoring all the national security concerns about it, but just raising their concerns about the level of influence and, the role it plays in their careers. And so I think that has definitely weighed in on his consideration. I think he wants to be seen as cool and popular among a broad swath of people, particularly young people. And that's been a challenge for him so far. So I think that he sees this as an advantage. But I've already seen so many people speak out against this ban and say that this was performative, that this is just him trying to get a win when clearly it has nothing to do with him. And I think it's getting really in the weeds of a lot of he said, she said, and not really focusing on the primary concerns, which has to do with communist China's influence through ByteDance.
Well, is it really about money? Because a lot of people make a lot of money on TikTok, and I know a lot of young Americans are unconcerned, it seems, about the security threat that TikTok poses to the United States. What do you say to them about it?
I think that we aren't seeing the forest for the trees on this issue. Look, I think, there's obviously people have built entire careers off these platforms. They are able to do very successful marketing campaigns, but this isn't a world that's limited to this platform. It's not like this idea of short form video is just going to go away. There's already other platforms that offer this. These people generally build, a reputation and an image across platforms and have followers across them. But what's really the bigger cause for concern is the role in which China's corporate governance structure gives them so much power over ByteDance, both access to the information that the application collects from us, which is one concern, but really I think the bigger concern is the level of influence that they are able to have over the content that's displayed on it. And we saw this after October 7th and the attacks on Israel. We've seen this during a number of hurricanes and the most recent wildfires, that TikTok quickly sends out information that completely distorts reality. It pits us against one another. It really polarizes the country with a lot of just complete nonsense information amid big, serious, natural disasters, national emergencies. And no one's talking about that. Nobody seems to care about how much we are being divided and confused by this platform. There's certainly concerns across that all over the internet, but I think that TikTok has been proven by the intelligence community to do that the most. And there's a big difference between Americans being misquoted on meta platforms and the Chinese Communist Party trying to shape our worldviews. I think those are in two very separate camps.
That's the big difference. Sam Rouse, Young Voices contributor, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Even after the overturning of Roe versus Wade, pro-life Americans continue to gather each year in Washington, D.C. for the annual Right to Life March. Since the landmark Supreme Court ruling 3 years ago, 23 states have attempted to implement complete abortion or viability bans. However, courts have intervened to block these bans in at least 6 states. Here to share an update and to discuss efforts to preserve unborn lives is Dawn Marie Perez. She's member of Samaritan Ministries International and director of StandUpGirl.com. Dawn Marie, some pro-lifers are a bit disheartened this year because efforts to advance, even codify abortion in several states have moved forward. and abortions are increasing, but I'm assuming you feel pro-lifers have reason for optimism. Why is that?
Well, I definitely think we should celebrate because I feel that we have become more unified as organizations as a whole, and we're working together better to make an effort to change the abortion laws here in the United States and around the world. So I celebrate because every day we get the opportunity to reach out to someone who is in that moment of a decision and help them to see their options. And we pray that they would choose life as their choice at the end of that option.
Yes, I know about 3 years ago, a lot of people were saying, look, the fight has just begun. It's all in the states now instead of on the federal level. And we now have a pro-life president back in the White House. So what difference does that make?
Well, I think it's going to make a huge difference in the direction our country is going to take in being able to share with people, especially we like to share with young people, that life begins at conception and that we're not a little blob of cells, and to celebrate that life, even if it can be a difficult decision or maybe a difficult choice that they have to make based on their plans for their future. And I think that President Trump is going to give us an opportunity to reverse some of these things that have happened. And we are praying especially that we can put more regulations on the abortion pill being available.
A lot of people complain about the pharmaceuticals pushing pills and medicine on us that is experimental and so forth. But what about the abortion pill? How dangerous is that?
Extremely. Abortive fascias are made with some of the same chemicals that are used during chemotherapy and basically are causing someone to miscarriage. And the unfortunate thing is that there are so many long-term side effects, not only physically and emotionally, that women are not being told about. And they're being told, hey, it's no big deal. Take this, your problem's going to go away. No one's going to have to know. And we need to have a supportive community come behind these women, even after they have chosen abortion, to help them to heal both physically and emotionally.
How does Samaritan Ministries differ from other health sharing ministries or other health sharing organizations when it comes to abortion?
Well, Samaritan's ministry is very pro-life, and they, part of our community together is really following God's word and what's God telling us to do and giving us direction to do as a community. And my family appreciates the fact that we can be a part of community of people that is like-minded, that we get the option, even with our own health care, to choose whatever medical providers we choose. We have an option to go and choose a pro-life OBGYN or someone we know that is going to look at all the options for our children when they're sick, instead of let's just give you a pill and send you on your way. And that's what we love about Samaritan Ministry, just being like-minded with not only the community that's involved, but also with the organization as a whole.
And tell us about the online resource that you have. You're the director of standupgirl.com. So what difference does that make?
Well, Stand Up Girl has been set up essentially if you want to try to get your mind around what we do. We are an online pregnancy resource center. So we have over 400,000 people that come to our website every month looking for pregnancy resources, or what are the pregnancy symptoms, or tell me about life in the womb. And we are there as a community of women trying to provide support for women around the world and helping them get connected with a life-affirming pregnancy center in their neighborhood that can come alongside them and partner with them and help them through this course in their life that was maybe something that obviously is unplanned for some of them. For some of them, it's planned and it's still a struggle, and they need resources like diapers and food and clothes for my baby. And how do I get those? Because I lost my job and I'm not sure what to do. And Stand Up Girl wants to be there to come alongside these women and help them when they're in this moment of crisis and be able a hand to walk with. And also our ultimate goal, of course, would be to save the baby and save the mom by having her have a relationship with Jesus Christ through all the work that we're doing with them.
Okay, Standing for Life. Dawn Marie Perez, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Only in the Middle East do they claim victory even after suffering heavy losses. The recent Gaza ceasefire has led many Palestinians, as well as other Arabs throughout the Islamic world, to assert that they've defeated the Zionists and emerged victorious over the Israelis. But are these claims valid? Let's examine the facts. 6 top Hamas leaders, including Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh, along with thousands of their fighters, have been killed. And what about the landscape of Gaza? Does it appear victorious to you? So what does the future hold? President Trump has expressed skepticism about the continuation of the ceasefire beyond the initial phase.
That's not our war, it's their war, but I'm not confident, but I think they're very weakened on the other side.
Do you support the two-state
Gaza, boy, I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really got to be rebuilt in a different way.
Do you plan to help rebuilding Gaza?
I might. You know, Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, the best weather. You know, everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have, well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead, by the way, right? Most of them are dead. But they didn't exactly run it well. Run viciously and badly. So you can't have that.
The future of Gaza truly lies in the hands of the Palestinians, not the Israelis. Will they choose to liberate themselves from the oppression, hardship, and destruction that Hamas has inflicted upon them? They can embrace peaceful coexistence and invest billions to advance their society instead of spending it on rockets, guns, and missiles. They have the opportunity to provide their children with a prosperous future, a quality of life similar to that enjoyed by Arabs in the UAE and Bahrain. Alternatively, they can choose a future filled with further devastation, violence, misery, chaos, and oppression. Which would you choose? Let us pray for lasting peace in Gaza and Jerusalem, that light will overcome darkness, and that love will conquer hate. Well, that's it today from the Global Lane. Until next time, be blessed.